Video games have come a very long way in the last 2 decades or so. So it's no surprise that when gamers my age or older go back to play classic games from the 90s or early 2000s that we grew up playing, these games feel very dated to us, both in terms of how they look and their mechanics. Hi folks, my name is Occam, and in today's video, I have a list of classic video games that I feel deserve remakes in the Big 25. Okay, first up we have Tony Hawk's Underground. Now, if you're a regular here, you know I love skateboarding video games. But before there was Session, before there was Skater XL, even before there was Skate, there was the Tony Hawk series. And in my opinion, Tony Hawk's Underground is the best of them. It was the first game in the Tony Hawk series to have a story mode, a story that I feel a lot of people can relate to. You know, trying to climb through the ranks of an industry and get your name out there, really get it out the mud, as the kids say. It was the first Tony Hawk game to have off-board mechanics, which I'll admit even at the time left a lot to be desired. One YouTuber even said that they controlled like freshly spanked buttock. A sentiment I feel a lot of us can relate to if you played that game. So the off-board mechanic is one of those things that they would really need to refine in a Thug remake. That and the god-awful driving mechanic that they had. One of the things they got right in the original, though, was the soundtrack. Now, these games are known to have amazing soundtracks, but I really liked the one in Thug. Put me onto a lot of great bands like Refused and Hot Water Music. And with the rate they've been going with remaking the Tony Hawk's games, Thug is next up on the list. Now, I'm recording this a few days after Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 just came out, and I know I'm not the only one hoping that that game does well enough that the company remaking them feels that a Thug remake is justified. And I know many people want to see a Thug remake happen. In a Screenrant interview from a few months ago, Tony Hawk said that a Thug remake hadn't even been discussed yet because at the time, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 hadn't even come out yet. But I got the impression that he was hopeful that a Thug remake might actually happen. So, fingers crossed, guys. Let's hope we get this Thug remake. Okay, up next, we have a classic, Need for Speed Most Wanted. And I mean the original Most Wanted from back in 2005. I remember being so impressed by the graphics of this game the first time I played it back in the day. And I feel like it still holds up kinda to this day. And I think it's a damn shame that you can't buy this game on digital platforms like Steam or even EA's own app. Because as I understand it, some of the music licenses expired, so they can't really sell copies of the game anymore. So the only legit way to play this game now is to get a copy on somewhere like Amazon or eBay. Is eBay still a thing? I don't know. And I think it'd be a damn shame to see a game this good relegated to becoming a piece of lost media, you know? And I feel like if they were to make a remake of this game, things like the Pursuit Breaker feature that they had in this game would look amazing. Throw in a day-night cycle and car customization similar to what they had in Need for Speed Carbon, dude, they'd make a killing. Now, of course, we can't talk about a Most Wanted remake without at least acknowledging the Most Wanted 2012 shaped elephant in the room. Now, I liked Most Wanted 2012 by Criterion. It was a pretty fun game. But I always felt it should have been a Hot Pursuit title, you know? It should have been Hot Pursuit 2. Because I remember when they announced that they were making a Most Wanted game, like many people, I pictured tuner cars with crazy vinyls and gigantic spoilers, neon lights and things like that, you know? But we got the game that we got. And the reason I think it should have been a Hot Pursuit title is because it was very similar to the Hot Pursuit game that Criterion made for EA back in 2010. And really, these games are more of a spiritual successor to the Burnout series than they were successors to Hot Pursuit and Most Wanted, you know? So if we are going to get a Most Wanted remake, I feel like the original Most Wanted from 2005 is the one we should get a remake of. What do you guys think? Okay, up next we have Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, this is considered by many people to be one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And as a fan of both the Star Wars IP and of RPGs, I couldn't agree more. I like how it went into detail on the Jedi and the Sith codes and gave them very distinct philosophies that differ from one another and really fleshed them out and took them out of that era where Jedi were considered the default good guys and Sith the default bad guys. I do think it's a shame, though, that the stuff from the Old Republic isn't really considered canon anymore ever since Disney bought the Star Wars IP. Because it would have added a lot of context to the Mandalorian show, you know? Because a lot of Mandalorian history is explored in Knights of the Old Republic. And it would have really helped flesh out the Mandalorians more in that show, I feel. And I know what you might be thinking. Wasn't a KOTOR remake already happening? Well, yes. Back in 2021, during a PlayStation showcase, a KOTOR remake was announced as a PS exclusive. Initially, it was being made by Aspire, and then later on it was handed off to Saber Interactive, and it's been in development hell ever since. We haven't had a word from them. Although one time Saber CCO Tim Willits, when he was asked about it, said that it was still in development. And the player base seems split on whether they would want a turn-based combat or something more action RPG. And I think it would work either way, because turn-based combat, there's still a place for it, even with modern audiences. Look at things like Baldur's Gate 3 or Clear Obscure, which had turn-based combat, and people love those games. But I also feel like something that's more action RPG would look flashier on screen, with force powers and all that. It would also be really cool to see how they'd implement lightsaber stances that were in KOTOR 2 in a KOTOR remake. Especially if they go with a more action RPG style of game as opposed to a turn-based RPG. That'd be awesome. And another thing that I never hear people talk about is the mini games that were in KOTOR. One of them being the card game Pazak, which is basically blackjack, and the swoop races. The swoop races especially, there's a lot of potential for improvement there. Modern game graphics being what they are, and I'm sure people have come up with a lot of ideas for how they could improve swoop races in a KOTOR remake. The swoop races in KOTOR 2, I felt kind of fell short. I feel like the ones in KOTOR 1 were better than the ones in KOTOR 2. And while we're on the subject of mini-games, the Holo Tactics minigame from Jedi Survivor could also make a comeback in KOTOR. That'd be awesome. I really enjoyed that. So best of luck to the people over at Saber Interactive. May the force be with them, and hopefully we get to see this KOTOR remake soon. Now, if you've known me for any length of time, you know I'm a bit of an edgelord, so the next game on this list shouldn't really come as a surprise to you. Max Payne. Now, I'm a huge fan of Sam Lake as a writer. I love his other stuff, the Alan Wake games and Control, which I hear is getting a sequel soon, which is awesome. But Max Payne was my introduction to the guy, and I've been a fan ever since. I love the dark and gritty tone of the Max Payne games, the first two anyway, as well as the dialogue, both in terms of its writing and the performance. James McCaffrey absolutely killed as Max Payne. Sad to say that he passed away, in case you hadn't heard. So I hope that if they do make a remake, they can keep his lines in there and, his legacy can live on that way. I also love those iconic comic book panel cutscenes that they had in these games, because I've never seen any other game do this, and I thought those were awesome and they should make a comeback in the remake. And Max Payne was also one of the very first games to use a bullet time mechanic, which I thought was awesome. And you'll be happy to know, if you're a fan of these games, that they actually are getting remakes. Both Max Payne 1 and 2 are being remade by Remedy in association with Rockstar Games. And I think it's going to be like a bottom-up type of remake because I heard that they're going to use the new Northlight engine, Remedy's new Northlight engine, not Rockstar's, which I think is awesome because these games, Max Payne 1 and 2, can be kind of a pain to run on modern operating systems without a bit of technical know-how, to get them running. And like I said with Need for Speed Most Wanted, it'd be a shame to see games this good become lost media. I also would love to see how a new generation of players would react to the Max Payne dialogue. Like that whole speech in Max Payne 2 about how the past is a gaping hole yawning at your heels and all that. It was really edgy. I'd love to see the kids react to stuff like that.
God, I turned out to be such a damsel in distress.
They were all dead. Love kills. Did I love her? Was there a choice? The past is a gaping hole. You try to run from it. The more you run, the deeper, more terrible it grows behind you. Its edges yawning at your heels. Your only chance is to turn around and face it.
We are at the scene. Repeat, we are at the scene.
But it's like looking down into the grave of your love.
So, this has been my list of classic games that I think deserve remakes. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. What's a game you think is deserving of a remake? Try to keep it to games made before 2015, older games. Thank you so much for liking the video and for subscribing to your boy. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.